You can put it on the board. Yes. Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP-TV mobile studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you try their New York steaks, the filet mignons, and of course the king of all those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Hell, even those Angus and Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Check them out at UppercutChops.com on your mobile device or on your computer. Hell, if you don't want to do that, give them a call. Find out what's for dinner at 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. All right, an astounding round of applause for everybody listening in, tuning in, of course, on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, as well as at all of our independents, plus Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, and WOW Cable Television, and, needless to say, Hotel TV in about 500,000 rooms from coast to coast. We're here with a very special guest. In fact, we're going to let him introduce himself. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joe Cortez, former international boxing referee from Las Vegas, Nevada, originally from New York, and here to talk about my career, talk about boxing.
All right, that's good stuff, Joe, and a nice round of applause for you, obviously. We want to make sure that everybody knows what the heck's going on here, and let's face it, Joe, you are a very popular guy in the boxing world and even in the film world as well. I mean, a lot of people know who you are, Joe, and frankly, they should, because they've seen you in movies. They've seen you in the biggest fights in the world. I gotta tell you, Joe, you are a man of many talents, but you're also sitting in a very cool location. Now, I was in this location maybe about a week ago. Tell everybody where you're at right now.
Right now, I'm here at my gym, my own little private gym at the here in Las Vegas. It's a gym that's like a museum. This place is set up like you can't imagine. And not only boxing, I have all sports in here. It's really a good place to come into to look at. One day we'll give you guys a tour of the whole gym here. I'm in the middle of my ring right now, sitting here. This is where I used to work out when I was practicing as a referee. When I used to work out, I used to like to do my ring mechanic right here in this ring. This ring has been here for 20 years. And I just, maybe a little bit longer than that. I've been retired for 10. So let's say this ring has been here since 1990, maybe 1995, 1996. This ring has been here. And I've been just, a place where I can, this is my domain. This is where I have my ring mechanic, and I bring other referees here. And I bring Tony Weiss, Kenny Bayless, Russell Mora, Robert Hoyle, Mike Ortega, Benji Esteves, some of the best referees in the world. I worked out in this ring here, practice. I teach him my ring mechanic and the do's and don'ts as a referee.
Yeah, Joe, that is the ultimate man cave, but for boxing. And there's other sports items in there as well. But I got to tell you, I have never walked into anybody's personal museum and seen such ridiculous, unbelievable artifacts, tickets, photos, boxing gloves, you name it. There are so many things in this ring or in your museum. It's unbelievable. What are a few of the highlights for everybody that can't see what's going on television right now? What are some of your favorite items inside your museum?
Well, I have a special location. As you enter my gym, there's a location where I keep all my boxing memorabilia in a trophy case. It's like a library glass, and in there you have all boxing gloves and all kinds of different medals that I won during the Golden Glove years. In my amateur year as a fighter, I got stuff from Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Roberto Duran, Vinny Pazienza, Carmen Basilio, Sugar Ray Robinson, some of the greatest of all time. I've stuff collected that I have here in my hand wraps that were used by fighters, autographed by them. And it's just a great great location. It's something that if I was to pick this up and put it on the strip in Las Vegas, it'll be a knockout for sure.
No question, no question. So, Joe, let's go back to the idea of when did you start boxing? Because a lot of people don't know that you were a boxer.
Yeah, well, I started boxing when I was 15 years old back in New York. I was born and raised in Spanish Harlem in New York. And there was a fighter by the name of Gaspar Indian Ortega who moved to my neighborhood back in the mid-50s when I was 12 years old. And he's the one that introduced me and my brother Mike into boxing. And then we got started boxing in the amateurs at the Golden Glove tournament in 1960. And the same year, 1960, I was 16 years old. And I won my first Golden Glove championship along with my brother Mike in the novice division. Then I won the Spanish Golden Glove that year as well. Then the following year, I went into the open division, Golden Gloves, again in Madison Square Garden. And you know, the great thing about fighting in these locations, Madison Square Garden, you got 15,000 fans watching us amateur fights. You know, it was just unbelievable to see that kind of an audience. It's something I got to pinch myself. I can't believe that I've had that experience fighting in Madison Square Garden in the amateurs with that many fans. I mean, more fans came to watch the amateur Golden Glove Championship than they did with the World Professional Championship fight that was held in that same arena.
So, Joe, look, how many fights did you have see if I can spit that one out. How many amateur fights did you have in the first place? And then as a professional?
I have 45 fights in the amateur with 43 wins, 2 losses. And those 2 losses, one was into a fighter named Marcel Berfet in in Montreal, Canada. That was in 1961. I represented the United States against Canada, and I lost a split decision. 2 judges gave it to me, and 3 gave it to the French Canadian. And if you're listening, if you're watching his show, Marcel Berfet, I want a rematch. Any day you call it, we'll do it again. And then and my second fight was when I was going for 3 years in a row, the Golden Glove. I lost in the finals a decision to a fighter that was a decent fighter. I had beaten him 3 months earlier. But when I fought in that tournament the third year in the open division, 126 pounds, we didn't have a trainer. My trainer got into an auto accident, and he was not able to train us. So we went out there, my brother Mike and I, with a substitute trainer. Anyway, no excuses, but I lost my second loss in the amateurs. Then as a professional, I had an 18-1 record as a professional, and my record was not bad. I only had about 2 or 3 knockouts in the pros, but I had all my wins. The only loss I had was to a fighter of name of he was from Toledo, Ohio. And anyway, I lost a split decision to him in Madison Square Garden. That was my 5th pro fight. And after that, I got upset and I joined the Army. I said, I got so upset. I said, I got to put on some weight. I want to get myself stronger. Went into the Army. They wouldn't let me fight in the Army because I was already an open, I was a professional fighter. They wouldn't let me participate. But they kept me on, they let me stay on the team. And I was still able to go up. I was training the fighters at Fort Hood, Texas. And they would let me go up on the weekends. There's some fights coming up. I would still participate in some professional fights while I was in the military. I got to go to Hawaii 3 or 4 times, went to Mexico 4 or 5 times to fight in Mexico while I was still in Fort Hood, Texas. So I was fortunate to stay active.
So in all your boxing as an amateur, there's always a lesson learned somewhere, right? There's always that moment you're like, aha. You had that aha moment where it's like that epiphany where you say, this is what I need to be doing. Maybe you fell asleep at the wheel in training on a certain area. Maybe you fell asleep at the wheel in the ring. Maybe you weren't on your toes. Maybe you were caught back on your heels. And I'm sure you had one moment somewhere in your amateur boxing that said, you know what? I better change this right away. Otherwise, I'm in big trouble. Take 30 seconds real quick and tell me if you had one of those moments.
Well, there was a fighter by the name of Luis Ortiz Aponte, who beat my brother Mike at featherweight division it's funny, so I got in New York, the Golden Glove tournament, and I remember he said, no, I want to beat the other Cortez brother. I was a bantamweight, 118. I had to go up and wait the following year. I wanted to fight him to get even with him. And I ended up, but then when I went in the ring with him, he was a southpaw. I caught myself a little bit confused of fighting a southpaw, but I caught on real quick. But that's the time you see you make a little mistake. I corrected it. I ended up beating him. So I got my revenge by beating him. He beat my brother Mike.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Well, you know, when we think of the, I guess the transition from amateur to pro, we're going to talk about that in the next segment coming up here. I want you to expand on that and what it takes mentally and physically to make that transformation from an amateur status to the pro status. Folks, we're going to be back here with the great Joe Cortez. That'd be the International Boxing Hall of Famer, Joe Cortez, in just a few moments here on the Sports Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
Nobody.
Okay, we're on a 3-minute break. All right, nice and simple, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Easy stuff.
Piece of cake. I'm used to doing this.
I mean, you've done many of these. And in fact, when we come back from break, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cue you. I'm going to give you a countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I'm going to point to you and you'll say, welcome back to the Sports Circus. This is International Boxing Hall of Famer Joe Cortez. And this segment is brought to you by Fair But Firm. Go ahead and plug Fair But Firm, where you could find it, etc., etc.
Okay.
Is that good?
Good.
That's good stuff. We'll give you a chance to plug that. You could find it on, where are you at? You're on Spotify and where else?
Well, right now, I'm on YouTube channel. I'm on YouTube channel and on Facebook right now.
Okay, YouTube and Facebook. Okay, you can check me out at YouTube and Facebook. So make
Right.
sure you just say that. All right, that's good stuff. Oh, let's see. Yeah, you know what? When I put a new virtual private network onto my computer yesterday, and I don't know what I did. I did it sometime yesterday just for extra web security, and it kind of messed up some of the elements on my soundboard. And luckily, I have a backup soundboard, which is what I'm using. So because I was looking for the punch sound, because of course I have, you're right, I've got that and the regular punches, but I just didn't have my regular soundboard because when I clicked it, it gave me a different sound. Where the punch sound is, I get Curly from the Three Stooges. So I don't know. I mean, I've got all of those, but on this second soundboard that I have, Joe, it literally has 1,000 availabilities, and I think I probably used up about 100 of them. So that's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming back in about 30 seconds. And so just wait for my cue, right? All right, so it'll be about 20 seconds into the intro music, and then I'll start giving you maybe the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, just so you're ready.
Then you want me to say, I want you guys to watch the Fair But Firm show.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Joe Cortez, International Boxing Hall of Famer. Make sure you check out the Fair But Firm show. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're coming back here in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll cue you.
Hello, Joe Cortez here, Fairfield firm. I'm known as an former international boxing referee from Las Vegas, Nevada, the boxing capital of the world. And I want you guys to subscribe and watch my show, the Joe Cortez Show, and the Fairfield Firm Show on the YouTube channel and on Facebook. Check it out.
That's good stuff. And that's, of course, a very familiar figure. Folks, in case you're just tuning in, by the way, on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. In fact, big welcome into everybody listening in on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's over in Honolulu, home of the New York Yankees, right? Gotta like those Yankees. All right, Joe, you're a New York guy. Also, home of the 49ers and home of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Welcome into everybody that may be listening with our friends over in CNBC and NBC News in California, right here in Las Vegas Public Radio, KQQY, also KIOF. Big welcome into everybody in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM, WAUD over in Auburn, Alabama, home of the 2021 world champion Atlanta Braves. Of course, now we have a different world champion in the Houston Astros, but nonetheless, welcome into everybody also on KTXT that's picking up our content over in Lubbock, Texas, Texas Tech Radio, Texas Tech Raider Radio. That's 88.1 FM. As well as all of our other independents from coast to coast, plus Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Wow Cable Television, and hotels in over 500,000 rooms from coast to coast, gaining over 4 million impressions per hour. That's crazy. Also, like, subscribe, and follow AMP-TV, AAMP.TV, as well as Instagram and Facebook for the Sports Circus. But I want to hear more about this. We're going to take a little break on the background of Joe Cortez. I want to hear a little bit more about this Fair But Firm program you have on YouTube and Facebook.
Well, this is a program that I started a couple of years ago with the referees and fighters and sports celebrities, just talking about boxing in general. My thing is to try to educate the fans to boxing. You know, what happens is, a lot of fans watch the fight, but they don't know the rules that apply when the referee got to stop the fight, when they got to take points, when they got to call in the ringside doctor, when they have to give a light warning, they give a strong warning, point deduction, disqualification. All these things are taught on these shows that I have because I want the fans to really understand the sport. You love the sport, but you start criticizing us officials. We get criticized, you know, win or lose, we're always getting criticized. But I want to try to educate you guys with the rules on boxing. That's what the Fair But Firm Show is all about.
Now, that's good stuff. And I will say this, of course, after a nice round of applause. When we think about fights on TV as the amateur person, just the regular TV watcher, right? Joe Couch Potato or Josephine Couch Potato. We don't know what is going on in the ring. We really don't. I mean, we see a couple of guys fighting, then we see a referee in there, you know, separating people, this, that, and the other. And now you have a picture on your wall in your museum. By the way, folks, that's where Joe has his own museum, and it's an unbelievable museum, by the way. And so when you're taking points away, you give a series of warnings prior to taking points away. How does that work?
Well, if it's intentional, there are no warnings. When you give the instructions back in the dressing room prior to the fight, that's when the referee takes control. We always, referees' duty is to give the instructions to the fighters in the dressing room. When they come into the ring, you let them know again, we went over the rules in the dressing room, but when a good, clean fight, obey my commands at all times, protect yourselves at all times. And then I say, all right, time, I'm fair but I'm firm, touch them up, and then the bell rings and they start fighting. But the thing is that when you take the point, if it's a light, you're doubtful whether it was intentional or unintentional, you give a warning. Then you think maybe it's intentional, but no harm was done, or he tried something that didn't work on his part, and you give him a strong warning. So if you keep on with these tactics, these flagrant fouls, I'm going to start taking some points. Like I remember when Mike Tyson, one of his, matter of fact, his last fight, I refereed 8 of his fights, but his last fight, when he fought Kevin McBride, I had to take 2 points from Mike Tyson for intentionally headbutting his opponent, Kevin McBride, and I took, there was no warning. As soon as he committed the foul, I saw Kevin McBride was cut. I called time. I took Mike by the wrist, and I took him to the judges. 2 points. I went to my head like this. I go side to my head. 2 points, headbutt. 2 points, headbutt. 2 points, headbutt. Took it to all 3 judges. I said, Mike, you keep on with this, I might end up disqualifying you. I don't want to do that. Okay? And that was it. And that was in the 6th round. At the end of the 6th round, Mike was so tired, he couldn't continue to fight. And we had to stop it. His corner, I saw Jeff Fennick was his trainer at the time, former world champion. He decided, I could see in his eye, like, Joe, stop this fight. And I waved it off at the end of the 6th round, but he walked back to the corner because he was just so fatigued, he had no legs. He wasn't hurt from a concussive blow to the head. He was just so tired. He couldn't keep up. Ken McBride was like 6'4", big, heavier than Mike, and Mike couldn't deal with that pressure. And Mike decided, he said, I can't beat this guy. I'm going to pack it in the boxing. That was his last fight. And that was about 15 years ago.
So, Joe, when you go to the dressing room, a lot of people don't know that there are instructions given in the dressing room because when we watch like one of those pay-per-view fights, which you've done so many of those, the viewing audience only sees what's going on in the ring. They don't know that you're going into the dressing rooms and giving instructions because they just hear like a quick overview of instructions. Now, shake hands or whatever, bump gloves and go back to your corners, whatever the heck it is. What do you tell the fighters in the dressing room that's different than what you tell them when you're in the ring when the cameras are on you?
Well, we elaborate a little bit more when it comes to giving the instructions. Like, let's say, for example, a fighter comes in from Mexico. He doesn't understand English, okay? So good thing about me, I'm bilingual, so I'm able to talk Spanish to them. I explain to them, about the headbutt. I say, listen, come in, headbutt, watch your headbutt. What I do first, I do my homework. I look at a box rec, the record of these fighters, and I also go on YouTube channel to see their previous fights. Most of their fights are on there. You put in the name of the fighter, and you see some of his fights. You see what habits he has. If he has some bad habit of going low, he has a bad habit of excessive holding. He has a habit of coming in with the head, intentional headbutt, holding and hitting. He spits out the mouthpiece intentionally. All these things. So when I go into the dressing room, I'm already going in there prepared. I know what I have to address and be strong at. Let's say he has a habit of going low blows. But listen, I know you have a habit like I did a heavyweight fighter one time. I warned him about, his previous fights. And Galata, when he fought Lennox Lewis, and I told him, Galata, let me tell you, this was in Atlantic City back in the 90s. I told Galata, let me tell you one thing. I know in the previous fight, you had the habit of going low. That's not going to happen tonight. Once you start going low, or start taking point, or I'm going to disqualify you. You understand that? He said, yes, sir. I said, no, low blows in this fight. You understand? I made sure that he understood that. Then I talked about spitting out the mouthpiece intentionally. You spit out the mouthpiece intentionally, it can cause you points. And if you hold excessive holding, I tell you break, and you don't break, or you throw a punch. When I say break, and you still throw a punch, that can cause you a point. Or you may be disqualified. You can hit the guy when I say break. The other guy lowers his guards, and you hit him, and you knock him out. You can be disqualified because I said break. So you got to stop punching when I say break. All these kind of things like that. The excessive holding is one thing that a lot of fighters try to do sometimes, especially when they're tired or when they're hurt. The trainer will tell them, listen, hold as much as you can when you're hurt. So his arms are tied up. You tie up his arms. And we know that we have to try to not let them continue with the excessive holding. Otherwise, you're going to be disqualified.
So I think it's interesting that here's a former boxer, a former championship boxer, right? Yourself, a gold glover. And here you are in the ring with a couple of guys trading blows. How many times have you been hit by a stray punch from one of the fighters?
No, I've never been hit. I refereed for 35 years, and I refereed close to 1,000 professional fights. And I'll tell you one thing I tell the referee when I give my seminar to referee is I say, when you say break, you kind of say break from out here, from the back. Then you go in. If you come in and then you break him up, you say break when you're breaking him up, it's too late. There's a good chance you're going to get hit there. So I say break from outside, then you come in. But if you come in, break, you're going to get clipped. He's referee. That's some of the don'ts in boxing.
Right. Well, a lot of people ask those questions. Geez, I wonder how many times a ref has been punched in the face or something like that. I would imagine at some point with some referees, because maybe they may not be experienced. And I know you train referees as well. We're going to get into that in the next segment. But I would imagine some of the lesser experienced referees have certainly been hit. But the bigger question is, has a referee ever been hit and, well, knocked out? Right? I mean, you got to ask yourself these questions. Do you know of that ever happening here in our last 30 seconds of the segment?
If you go on YouTube, a YouTube channel, go on there and you put on there, referee gets knocked out. Put that in there. You'll see there's tons of a video clip, a referee stepping in and getting hit with a point, getting knocked out. You see that? Quite a bit of them.
Have you ever been at the fights and seen it?
Was that?
Have you ever been at a fight just as an audience member or a judge scoring a fight and ever seen it?
I've seen it happen. Yes, I have.
No kidding. Jeez,
Yeah,
well, you know what I wouldn't pay to see that just live just because it's so unusual. All right, folks, we're going to be back here with the great Joe Cortez, Boxing Hall of Fame, International Boxing Hall of Famer, championship fighter, and we got some good trivia coming up as well here with Joe. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this commercial right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935, or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
All right, we've got 2 minutes. That's a pretty good commercial. It's pretty good content because what that does, that gives people an idea of our reach. Mind you, I still have to update that because I don't even cover all the other platforms that we're on top of it. It's nuts.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's very interesting. It's very good to be talking about the different topics on the air because a lot of fans don't know the rules on boxing and they love the sport, but they don't know what goes on with the referees. You know, the ringside doctors, the inspectors in the corner. You got the cut man, you got the timekeeper. There's so many. As a referee, you're the captain of the ship. You got to control everybody in your domain, making sure that everybody's performing their job correctly. And there's a lot of things that a lot of referees don't know. You know, if you see a corner man applying excessive Vaseline on a fighter, you got to let them know you got to remove some of that Vaseline. The inspector's in that corner as well. The inspector will help you. The inspector's in the corner. You see the burgundy jacket, a tag on their shirt, and they're right there monitoring the corner. They're policing the corner, making sure that nothing goes wrong during the round, during the rest period, or even during the round when they're in action. The inspector got to keep control of the cornermen while they're sitting down at ringside, making sure that they keep them under control.
Right. Yeah, and I want to talk about that in this coming segment because, again, people just kind of watch it and they're like, well, I see two guys fighting, but they don't really know the big production. Kind of like when people are watching a program like this. They have no damn clue of the scope of production work that's actually put into this to make this right and to make this even happen. I mean, again, I have 3 cameras going at one time. I have 2 soundboards, and we're coming right back from break. So here we go.
Everybody, this is Barry Katz from the Industry Standard Podcast, and you're listening to the Sports Circus with Sal Tuzzolino.
back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV mobile studio. That's AAMP.TV. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. This segment brought to you in part by the Fair But Firm Show by Joe Cortez, and you can find that on YouTube. You can find that on Facebook. We're with the great Joe Cortez, International Boxing Hall of Famer, also was a championship boxer as well. We've got a really interesting bit of trivia for you coming up. But folks, make sure you check out the Fair But Firm Show for Joe Cortez, and you can find that on YouTube, also on Facebook, and possibly other platforms coming up. So make sure you stay tuned. You may see a press release coming out on it pretty soon as well. Yes! All right. Welcome back to everybody that's listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast, all of our independents, everybody watching on television in hotels, and on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, and WOW Cable Television affiliates. Again, we're here with the great Joe Cortez. And Joe, in the last segment, we started to touch upon some of the things that happen maybe in the locker room when you're giving a little bit of speeches, also in the ring, talking about possibly taking points away. But, you know, it's a big production that's going on in that ring that people don't see. The viewers, when they go to these fight watch parties and there's pay-per-view things and whatnot, there's a lot going on. Joe, give us an idea just what happens in the corner with each fighter in between rounds.
Well, there's our inspectors in the corners. You see the inspectors with a burgundy jacket or with a badge around their neck. They're policing that corner. And what they're doing is keeping control. And a lot of fans don't know a lot goes on while you're in as a referee. You're the captain of the ship when you're refereeing a fight. This is my domain. Anything that goes wrong in the ring is my responsibility. So anyway, the thing is that if a fighter is committing a foul or doing something wrong, you want to go into the corner and you want to maybe talk to him. Maybe if you don't speak the language, maybe the inspector in that corner speaks Spanish. You can tell the inspector, tell him that if you continue with low blow and excessive holding, I'm going to start taking some point. That inspector will help you tell him, what his condition. Sometimes a fighter is not in good condition and you want to see how he's doing in between rounds. You want to call in the ringside doctor, evaluate his condition. Again, the inspector is there to keep control of the corner, making sure that they don't use excessive Vaseline or too much water on the fighter. Sometimes they put ice inside their trunks, to cool them off. Then when the bell rings, they come out, all the ice is falling all over the floor, all over the ring. And then what happens is you got to call time to get it all wiped up because they're tripping on all that ice. There's a lot of things that go on in that corner. And the inspectors, our eyes and ears, we need the inspectors to monitor everything that goes on in the corner. That's why we have training seminars, not only for judges and referees, but for ringside doctors, for inspectors, for timekeepers. All of this because sometimes you call time, the timekeeper fell asleep at the bell, and he see that you call time, the clock is still running. Sometimes you see a round can go into 4 minutes instead of 3 minutes, or sometimes they go into 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes. They make mistakes. So everybody got to be really paying 100% attention to their duties while officiating. You got as a referee, you have to make sure that they're all doing their job. You got a good ringside doctor, and then you got a mediocre doctor who doesn't know too much about boxing. Maybe he's just starting out as a ringside doctor. And sometimes, you hate to overrule a doctor, when he tells you to stop the fight or something. Maybe a little cut on the back of the head back here, something small, and the doctor said, you better stop because too much blood is coming out. But it's not a danger for that fighter, but some doctors will freak out, they stop it, and that's when the referee has to say, well, we're not going to stop it. But that hardly ever happens. If a doctor tells a referee, stop a fight, it's best you do stop it. But it's on his watch. He made a call, but you really don't want to try to have a controversial fight ending with a inexperienced ringside doctor or corner. Sometimes the corner wants to throw in the towel to stop the fight. Now there's a new rule now that we don't accept the towel flying into the ring. But we don't know who threw that towel in. It could have been a bystander. It could be somebody who had a bet on the other fighter. Anyway, so we want to make sure that the inspector has control. When a cornerman wants to stop the fight, let the cornerman come up to the ring apron with the inspector waving a towel, and then get the attention of the referee. That's when you stop a fight. There's a lot of things that go on.
You know, that's a good point, because a lot of people don't know how that works. I mean, including myself. I have no idea. I think back to one of the Rocky movies, right? So I'm watching maybe Rocky 4, and when Apollo's about to go down, and his corner's saying, "Throw the towel in, man, throw in the damn towel." And Rocky's got the towel in his hand. Of course, Rocky's in that picture right next to you. We're going to get to that in a second. But we don't know who's throwing a towel, just like you said. It could be somebody that has a bet on it. And the rules around what happens in that corner during the fight, as well as in between, right? And during the rounds or in between rounds, there's a lot going on. And basically, you're the person in charge of everything. Is that fair to say?
It is. You have to make sure that if the fight is going to be stopped at a corner, you make sure that first of all, there's 3 cornermen, and there's two up on the apron. I mean, if they one comes inside the ring, that most likely that is the head coach, the head trainer. Then you got 2 other ones, one on each side, one with helping with the ice, and the other one with the cut, whatever. But then what happens is that one let's say the cut man says, "I want to stop this fight," but he's not the chief second. So you have to make sure that when you address the fighters in the dressing room, you want to find out who's the chief second. You got to identify him, because if anybody will stop the fight, you're the only one that can stop it, not him. You know, a lot of fans don't know that, but not just anybody can stop the fight in any point. It's got to be the chief second. That's very important that the referees know this.
That's a very good point. And even somebody like myself, I've seen hundreds of fights on TV and only a couple in person, but I don't know who can stop it. There has to be some chain of command, and they probably need to convey that to the inspector that's over there too, right?
Right, the inspector is the one that he got to make sure that who's the chief second in that corner. A lot of commission, a lot of inspectors don't do their homework the way they're supposed to. The inspector, when the fighters come into the ring, the inspector should ask the 3 gentlemen that are coming up with the fighter, who's the chief second in here? Identify him. And I think it'd be better maybe if a chief second should have a kind of something around his neck or something to identify that he's the chief second, like a red collar or something to be around his neck. Say he's the chief, say he's the one that can stop the fight. But once you're in the commotion going on, the fight right now, the chief second may forget who was the chief second.
And maybe they need like the Captain C on their shirt or something like that, you know?
To identify the chief second. And no commissioner is doing that. That's why one day, if I was a commissioner, these are the kind of changes that I would apply to commission, to making sure that the inspectors, everybody know who's the chief second coming into that corner. If you're going to make a stoppage, you got to make sure it's the chief second and not the cut man and not the water man.
Let me ask you a question about television and film versus the real thing. So in our last few minutes of the segment here, real quick, I want you to distinguish between, like you've been in how many movies? Lots of movies, a lot of fight movies. And what happens in the corner in the fight movies, obviously there's dialogue, etc. But what happens during a real fight? Let's just take one of the Rocky movies, right? Because you were in a Rocky movie as well. So you have Sylvester Stallone in that International Boxing Hall of Fame induction picture to your right, which he is the one right next to you, if I'm not mistaken. What happens differently, for example, in that film in the corner, or is it true to form? Because it seems like there are maybe 2 guys instead of 3 guys in the corner, unless there's just 2 guys on the apron, like you said.
There's 2 guys up on the apron and 1 on the bottom. So sometimes some commissions allow 4 cornermen to work and to fight, and there'll be 3 on the top, like 1 on each side of the rope, 1 inside the ring, and 1 on the bottom of the steps of the ring. There's four cornermen there. And in movies, going back to your movies, in movies, everything is not really authentic, even though Sylvester Stallone asked me when we did the Rocky Balboa movie, that's the last one he participated in as a fighter. He said, "Joe, I want the movie to look authentic as possible." Okay, so I got him real cutman. I got the real cutman to work in each corner with his opponent and his corner, and these guys were really the real deal. They know what they were doing. But when we're filming a fight, it took us 6 days to film a segment you saw in the Rocky Balboa movie. It took us 10 to 12 hours a day filming. We're making sure it would look authentic as possible. And I mean, you watch the movie, you see it looks pretty authentic. And I would say 99% of it looks authentic. But sometimes things go in the corner when you're filming, and it's not really the way it's held, the way it's done in the real fight. They may do something in the corner. They may say something. The cornermen get out of control, and they may do something to put a little bit more flair to the movie. But the inspectors got to keep control of that. But the movies and in real life are two different subjects altogether.
Yeah, you know, there are so many elements going on with those productions. It's crazy. And, you know, people say, well, you know, you've got the boxing commission with their hands in it. Well, there's a lot happening, folks, unless you're paying attention to what's happening in the entire ring, which you're really only going to see if you're actually at the fights. Don't complain about it. Just shut up, drink your soda, whatever you're drinking, eat your popcorn, watch some great entertainment, and watch some really, really courageous guys that are in there as referees. Back here with one of those Hall of Famer, International Boxing Hall of Fame that is, Joe Cortez, back here in just a few minutes on the circus. Don't go anywhere.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important...
Okay, we're going to fade that out. We got to take care of a little business here real quick.
Wherever you are, whatever you do, have a nice day. Sky Radio on the Capital FM, London. Today's best music, C100. WAYB FM 95 Atlantic City.
You're listening to 97 WYNY. WYNY.
WRFM, Stereo 105.
XW Trenton, Kicks 101.5, the music you love to hear.
All right. Got to make sure we get some of those in. And we've got another segment, and I hope you're having a good time.
That's great. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's pretty much like I said, right? It is what it is. And the production value actually is very good. The images look really good on our side. On your camera, when I shift it to just speaker, what ends up happening, sometimes your camera gets a little out of focus and then it readjusts. So I said lean in a little bit, because if you lean in a little bit, right, it'll focus on you instead of the images behind you, because it'll autofocus, right? Okay. Is there anything in particular that you want to get out there for the last segment?
We can talk about some of the fighters that are today's fighters compared to the fighters of the past. You know, back in the 50s,
right.
60s.
Compare and contrast.
You know, if we see any changes in boxing, what's the state of boxing these days compared to it was the day when I was fighting?
Right. Well, yeah, that comes up very often in baseball, football, basketball, hockey. So it certainly will come up in boxing as well. It's something that I have a personal interest in myself. Okay. All right. We're coming back in about 15 seconds. We'll make sure that we give the Fair But Firm another kick once again, just because we can. All right. Here we go.
Make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV mobile studio, AAMP.TV. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. This segment brought to you in part by, of course, the Fair But Firm Show with our esteemed guest, and that would be the amazing and wonderful, yes, you guessed it, Joe Cortez. International Boxing Hall of Famer, Joe Cortez. Check out the Fair But Firm Show on YouTube as well as Facebook. Maybe some more news coming out as well. And Joe, go ahead and tell everybody 15 seconds real quick what it's about.
Well, we will be talking about the do's and don'ts in boxing, but also let's talk about what was boxing back in the 50s, 60s, 70s compared to what's the state of the boxing today.
Oh, wow, that's good stuff. All right, and a big welcome back to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates, plus independents from coast to coast, all of our television affiliates and social media. Thanks for joining us on Instagram, on Facebook, and AMP TV, AAMP.TV. And folks, make sure that you like, subscribe, and follow, as well as shameless plug. Also, check out the sportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, our recorded shows, which you can find on your favorite podcast platform, from Apple Podcasts to Amazon Music to iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, Google Music, Audible. We're on every one of them. You can't get away from us. That's the great news. But more importantly, Joe has his show as well, and you want to make sure you like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube and Facebook, and that is the Fair But Firm Show with Joe Cortez. All right, so Joe, in the last segment, we were talking a little bit about some of the different things that happen in the ring, but how about this? How about boxing styles from when you were fighting back in the day to today? Now, we see the same thing in pick your favorite sport. In football today, hell, they play a flag football game. They don't even hit anymore. What about boxing? Are they still hitting the same way that they did back in the day? And is it being refereed the same way as when you were boxing?
Well, let me tell you one thing, that when I started refereeing, I knew that something was wrong, and I didn't like the way referees, there was like no set rules on refereeing. There was no, I couldn't find a book, anything as far as what are the duties of a referee. There was nothing out there. So Larry Haslett was a commissioner of the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, and he was a referee at the time. Like myself, we started out together. We used to talk back and forth every day, like 3 or 4 times a day. He was a principal of a high school in New Jersey, and I was working in the hotel and hospitality business. And then we talked. We had the luxury to be able to on the phone 3 or 4 times a day talking while we had at work. And I would tell him, hey, Larry, there's something going on in boxing that is not right. Referees are not doing their duties. I think we got to start revolutionizing refereeing. And we did. Larry Haslett and I started with revolutionary refereeing. We started creating rules, the do's and don'ts. We had a doctor, Dr. Mike Xavier. Larry Haslett and myself were the first officials to give the first seminar ever given in boxing back in 1979, back in New Jersey. And this is where we try to change the rules, because the fighters were hitting the opponent behind the head. A fighter would hit an opponent when he was down. There was no point deductions. They would hit excessive low blows, excessive holding. There was no rules. Whatever the referee did was accepted by everybody. I said, no, there got to be a set rules that we have to apply. And we got to be more stringent with our rules. We have to try to be more forceful and make sure these fighters understand the rules that they must comply to. A lot of fighters were not complying with the rules. So we changed. The 3 knockdown rule was in effect. You got knocked down 3 times in the same round, the fight was automatically over. Now we changed that where it's up to the discretion of the referee. A fighter can get knocked down more than 3 times, could be 4 times. I remember I refereed a fight with Manny Pacquiao and one man named Marquez, and Marquez went down 3 times in the first round. And I thought that he wasn't hurt that bad because they were like flash knockdown. So I said, no, I'm gonna let it go. And I let it go because it was up to the discretion of the referee. And I let it go, and Marquez managed to get up that round and finished strong the first round and went up to end up getting a draw in the fight. And would fight 2, 3, and 4 would have never occurred had I stopped the first fight. And so there's a lot of rules that we applied back then that we using now that was not applied back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
So what about medical training? Now, you have the discretion to stop a fight, and you actually have say over the medical staff or the doctor that's there. What kind of medical training have you had, or do referees get, so they could potentially override a doctor?
Well, I say, only twice I had to make a call that I hated to do, but when the doctor, there was a small little cut on the fighter's eye in Atlantic City. There was a small little cut here on the eye. It was not a dangerous area, and the doctor wanted to stop it. And I said, but it was a nothing cut, you know. It was bleeding, slightly bleeding. He wanted to stop it. I said, sorry, but I can't. You know, there was another fight I did in Germany where the doctor wanted me to stop the fight as well. You know, I said, no, it was a nothing cut. It was not in a dangerous area. I said, no, it was. I don't know if they were trying. He was favoring the local guy, but I didn't want to stop the fight that way. I said, if you're going to win, let him win it the right way, but not with somebody incompetent. And that doctor was a good doctor. I just didn't like the way he was doing. But you as a chief in charge, you know, you have to make the decision. But sometimes, you know, there's fighters that are taking unnecessary punishment, and the referees, they're not stopping it on time. Sometimes the commissioner, Larry Hazard, will get up on a ring apron and tell the referee to stop it, you know? And that's something that we hate to see in boxing. They're taking like the duties of a referee away, but sometimes you have to do it because you don't want to fight it passing away, because like right now there's a fighter who's in an induced coma from a couple of days ago from a fight, injuries he took close to the head. So you got to be so careful about that. You got to make sure New York, California, and Las Vegas, they have a right, the doctor has a right to actually not Vegas, but California and New York, the doctor has the right to come up to the ring apron and stop the fight without consulting with the doctor or anything. So there's certain rules that apply in different states. That's why as a referee, you have to know exactly where you're refereeing, what are the rules, but try to be very careful, but try to always listen to the doctor. Try not to override the doctor's ruling.
So what are the rules for, and now I can tell you this from the legal side. I know that if you get in front of a judge, if you're in the courtroom, they have to replace the judge and get somebody else if you know them or if it's a friend of yours. How many times have you reffed a fight that you've had a friend, possibly a very good relationship with, one of the fighters? Do they replace the referee?
Well, let me tell you one thing. I've always felt that a referee should not have any relationship with any fighters, any managers, trainers, promoters. Keep your distance. As a referee, you got to be like a judge in a courtroom. Just do your job at a distance. You know, be nice to everybody. Hey, how you doing? Good. But you know, don't be mingling with them and try to fraternize with these individuals. When you start doing that, it looks like you're not doing your job right. I would say it could be my brother in there. I will take a point if I have to. Got to go in there with that mentality. Don't ever side with fighters, trainers, managers, promoters, anything like that.
Okay, Joe, we're running out of time here. I have to ask you, because a lot of people are sending me messages, the best fight that you believe that you ever reffed, the highest profile fight as well.
Well, I think that one of the highest profile fights I ever refereed, I have to go with Roberto Duran when he won the middleweight championship against Iran Barkley, 1989 in Atlantic City. I mean, he was 35 years of age, when Iran Barkley was only 28. Iran Barkley had just finished knocking out Tommy Hearns. And nobody really gave Duran a chance against Iran Barkley, but it was one of the best fights. You want to watch that fight? Go on YouTube channel and watch Roberto Duran versus Iran Barkley for the middleweight championship, where Duran won on a split decision. It was a great fight. And you can watch that fight 100 times. You can see all 12 rounds. One is better than the other.
Your favorite fight?
My favorite fight was when George Foreman knocked out Michael Moore for the heavyweight championship of the world. Foreman was 45 years of age, and I couldn't believe that a fighter at that age, 20 years prior to that, he was heavyweight champion of the world when he knocked out Joe Frazier. But he come out now, he knocks out Michael Moore 20 years later, becomes the oldest heavyweight champion. It was a punch I would heard around the world, and I had the honor of refereeing that fight.
Okay, the picture next to you, the International Boxing Hall of Fame induction picture. Who's in that?
Yeah, I'm Nacho Beristain on the far left. Then you got Julio Cesar Chavez. You got Mike Tyson, Kaza Zhu, Sylvester Stallone, and myself of the class 2011 up in Canastota, New York. And a lot of people say, well, why did Sylvester Stallone get inducted into International Boxing Hall of Fame? Well, you know, he did a lot for boxing. He drew a lot of fans to boxing because of the Rocky movies. And that's why Ed Brophy and the committee up in Canastota, New York, Ed Brophy, the director, and his board member, they all decided they would give Sylvester Stallone an exception and made him a Hall of Famer. So, you know, it was great. He's great for boxing, a great person, great friend, and we had a lot of fun filming the movies.
Well, I think a lot of people...
I refereed Mike Tyson 8 times. Julio Cesar Chavez, I refereed 6 times. Kaza Zhu, I refereed twice. And Nacho Beristain is a trainer from Mexico, and I referee about 9 of his championship fighters.
Joe, we have 1 minute. Give a final message to everybody that's watching right now to leave them with something that they may not have known about boxing.
Well, one thing I can tell you is that boxing is a sport. It's not a game. Boxing is not a game. You're in the hurt business. You're there to hurt your opponent, you know, to put them away. But a lot of fans will say, well, you know, why is the referee stopping the fight? You know, you may have your favorite fighter. You don't want him to stop it until he's laying out, knocked out cold. I told the fighters, I'm here to give you instructions, but one of the things in my instructions is I want to make sure that you don't take unnecessary punishment. I told that to Mike Tyson. I told that to Sugar Ray Leonard. I said it to Roberto Duran, all the great fighters. You name them, I've told them all. I'm here to protect you. I'm going to treat you like my son. I don't want you to take unnecessary punishment. But the fans don't accept that. The fans want to see a fighter get knocked out cold. You know, you don't want to do that because you want a fighter to go back to his family. You want to come back, you know, after a fight. You don't want to lose a fighter. Too many black guys in boxing with fighters getting killed in the ring. We don't need that anymore.
Right. All right. Well, Joe, that's going to do it for today's show. And everybody, listen, Joe's going to come back. I believe we're going to bring Joe back, and who knows how often, but guess what? Joe Cortez, International Boxing Hall of Famer, is likely going to be back on this program. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe next time we can talk about hockey fights and boxing, right? You never know. I think that would be one hell of a combination. So, Joe, thanks for joining us today here on the Sports Circus. Always a pleasure. And, folks, we're going to see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. So until then, so long, everyone.
Keep your guards up at all times.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.